Welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday, the slap. I'm your host, Paco LeBron. This is the place to learn how to run your IT service business, whether you are a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. Let me go ahead and introduce my co-host. We have none other than Rick Smith over at Renactness Technology. Rick, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Paco. Can't complain. Can't complain at all.
I hear that. I hear that. Better than good, better than most is like what I like to say. Before we kind of dive into the slap, we're talking about my favorite thing is TechCon Unplugged. TechCon Unplugged is September 16th to the 18th at the Hilton Rosemont Chicago O'Hare. There you will learn from other like-minded business owners and panels, breakout sessions, key takeaways from partners and vendors in the space. And then you can also experience that one-to-one hallway slash a little meeting area that you go outside of the sessions where we've been told where the magic happens. Tickets are $299, but you can take advantage of the early bird price of $199. Super important as you're hearing this video. Probably the audio will come after the fact of this, but if you're watching live or if you're watching the YouTube on demand before April 4th, early bird pricing will end next Monday, April 4th. So if you want to take advantage of this deal of $100 off, head over to techconunplugged.com, and we look forward to seeing you there. All right. So, Rick, we all know why we call this episode the slap. And we ain't talking about the Oscars because we know what happened over there. We're talking about the slap of really how do you gauge and how do you prep your clients from receiving that figurative slap to the face when you're talking about upgrading or updating their pricing. So I figured this is going to be a great topic. Pricing always comes up in a lot of the communities that we talk about. It's a constant conversation that you really should be having and understanding where you are, what is the market demanding, and really just trying to figure out where you want to go. So I guess I'll open this up and, I want to talk a little bit. This will be more of a conversational setting. I know we talked about a little bit this about earlier today, and really just talk more about pricing. How do you figure out pricing? And the big question for everyone trying to figure out is, am I charging enough? Because I feel like I'm always leaving that ever elusive money on the table. So, Rick, I'll just kind of toss it over to you. What's got you thinking about pricing? What's prompting it? And, for me, I'm sure one of those is going to be bills. And this ain't a Destiny's Child track. So go ahead.
Well, one of the things, we have to be aware of now, I'm sure everybody's experiencing it. Prices are going up for us. Vendor costs are going up. If we have to do on-site calls, the cost of gas has gone up. Most of us who have insurance, I've talked to several people on this, our insurance rates have gone up. So essentially, there are a lot of costs that are associated with us doing business that have increased. Now, in order for us to stay in business, stay profitable, stay successful, we're going to have to, pass some of those costs down. We can't absorb those costs and expect to keep the doors open, quote unquote. So it's time now that we all think about, if we haven't already, raising prices. So I've been working on it, but it always goes back to the same thing. When you talk about pricing, I'm trying to figure out, what do I charge? How do I charge it? Am I charging enough? And so, we come to this, and it seems to sometimes I get caught in this trap. So if I've been pricing the way I've been pricing for the past year, why am I, if I'm just going to raise the rates, why not just go a flat 3%, 5%, whatever the rate change is, and just leave it at that? But, maybe it's the OCD in me. I have to examine how I'm doing it now. And am I doing it correct? Am I making enough money? Am I charging fairly, being a part of the, being competitive? I don't necessarily care about being the cheapest in the market. I don't want to be the cheapest in the market. I'm not necessarily trying to compete to be the most expensive. What I am trying to do is get a great margin for me, my business to sustain, to keep us running, keep the doors open. So
sure.
The challenge is, what is that? So that's what we are today.
No, I mean, it's a very good question, right? I think that a lot of us are trying to figure out you know, I think what causes this is we hear from a lot of webinars, we hear from a lot of other of our peers that are doing, $1 million sales. They're getting X amount of $1 million or X amount of $100,000 every month for their monthly recurring revenue. And there's two sides of the camp, right? There's those that want to maintain a lifestyle business, which is what I titled that, where you're trying to make enough money to survive, pay your bills, and do what you love to do, right? And then there's others that are looking to scale. They want to grab every dollar that they can, and not in a bad way, but really trying to do good in their community or in their city. They're trying to bring jobs. They're trying to provide great IT and cybersecurity support to small businesses that otherwise wouldn't have that experience or just the ability to even leverage someone that can have it. So everyone has their own motivation to kind of get to where they want to go, right? I think the biggest piece is listening to a lot of those webinars. It's always causing doubt on the IT service provider, whether you're running a shop, whether you're an MSP. Are you charging enough, right? Because you hear this great number, right? And it's like, damn, why can't I get to that number that they have? Or, hey, how do I, go from there? Quite honestly, my bit of advice is kind of similar, like you looking at Instagram and seeing somebody jumping on a boat and they're living their best life, right? It's all bullshit. That's really the whole, it's true. I think you're trying to highlight something that, although it looks great, you don't know the story behind it, right? And that's why I use such that profane word, because I really want people to understand that, you don't have to compare yourself and trying to figure out what your growth is, right? It all takes time. Now, obviously, you want to lower that time as much as possible by listening to other experiences and other pieces, but you got to adopt what's important to you. I can go ahead and detail, or actually, I'm going to actually turn this around because I've actually talked about my story quite a bit in the past. But if you were to compare, how long have you been in business now? Since you said 2000, was it 3?
3.
Yeah. So damn near close to 20 years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you were doing things differently back then, but can you honestly say what you were kind of charging back then? And obviously different things, different times, inflation and all that sort of deal. And compared to what you're charging now, I'm sure it's boundful times more, right?
Night and day.
Whether that is the services you're offering, the hours that you're leveraging, and the tools that are trying to make your jobs a lot easier, right? So, from that experience, what were some of the things that helped you make some of those shifts of what you were doing back then? We can even just say the last 5 years or better yet, why don't we just say the last 3 years? In the last 3 years, what changed it? What were you charging then? And what was your mentality behind charging that? And what has shifted to now? Because I'm sure there's a big difference between in the last 3 years of what you've adopted, what you've tried to do. What was that frame of mind and what did you pivot to change on some of your pricing structure?
Well, for me, I think I was, when I made my shift from break fix to MSP, I took my first set of clients were my break fix clients. So one of them, I'm going to say it's a mistake now that I made, was trying to make sure I kept those clients to keep going. So I priced myself a little lower, right? I didn't know it at the time, but I was undercharging. And I'm going to say this is a little side note to this. I remember coming to, I think it was in 2019, going to MSP Unplugged, to TechCon Unplugged in Michigan. Tom Bull and I were on the same flight. Tom and I talked, and Tom said to me, we were talking, and I cannot remember how the conversation started, but we started talking about service, and Tom said to me point blank, "You're charging too little. He said, you're charging too little. You're not charging enough. You got to raise your prices." And it was this point blank. Now, the whole weekend, I'm like, what the hell's he talking about? And then, when I got to Michigan, and I knew this beforehand, but it's just one of those things. I just said that as a side note because it was somebody that I had the conversation with who
Sure.
point blank, didn't sugarcoat it. You're not charging enough and you're killing yourself,
Yeah.
basically. So, again, pricing it lower in the beginning was the mistake I made, and I think a lot of MSPs make is trying to just compete. One of the other things you got to take into consideration when doing that, you cannot price yourself as a one-man shop doing business as a solo tech with 5 clients, and then those prices you expect to have going when you're a 10-man shop with 100 clients or 200 clients or 1,000 seats, whatever your goal may be, because your margins will not work out. You're going to continuously be chasing yourself because you've underpriced yourself. Once you hire a tech, you're behind the 8 ball now. So one of the pieces of advice I would give to everyone: price your business price your pricing now as you want your business to grow. So if you want to be a 10-man shop, if that's your vision, doing $1 million a year with 1,000 or, however many endpoints you have, you price your pricing now based on that. And then you will not find yourself in the space where you have to make a drastic change, because we can get our clients to absorb the 3, 5, maybe even 10% jump in price. But after that, we're going to really have to sell to get them to absorb. If we have to say, hey, I've really been undercharging and now I got to raise your rate 40%, 50%. So getting back to it, I did not price my pricing based on where I wanted to be. I based it on where I was. And I think that is one of the mistakes that I made, and I had to, and I'm, been gradually making up that difference now.
Yeah. No, I a lot of great points that you've made. And I think that's really where, you know, for someone who just doesn't know how to do that, right? And hasn't participated in any live event, whether it's Tech on Unplugged, the Channel Pro events, ASCII, etc. Um, really the biggest help for yourself is you got to find a CPA, and a legitimate CPA, because I've gone through my fair share of accountants and they're not the same as a CPA. I can tell you that right now, and has the ability to help you forecast what you want to do. So I had a friend of mine who was who is a CPA, and she kind of helped me in the early years figure out how to forecast what I want to do in 3 to 5 years. And I damn near thought she was crazy when she said, "Hey, if you want to get here, this is what you need in payroll. This is what you're going to do. And you have to understand that the cost is going to gradually go up. So that margin, you got to be mindful of it." Now, since then, I went through a slew of accountants because she couldn't help me anymore. And then ended up finding my CPA, who I have now, and understanding that that forecast was the same of what I had before is crazy, right? And there's all kinds of things that goes into this: budgeting, figuring out where you're going from there. But I think the biggest piece that an IT service provider needs to figure out is, what does it mean that you're undercharging? Where is that coming from? Is that you looking at the data, looking at what you're charging, and thinking, okay, in my market, I know my competitor over here, which I don't believe in competitors, but we'll just, for the sake of titles, competitor over here down the street is charging at least 3 times more than what I'm making. Okay, well then, why aren't you making that, right? And the question sometimes comes in, well, they're doing this and they're doing that and they have this. But when it all boils down to it, it's really on confidence. I know this firsthand, on being able to understand that confidence is what gets you places. I was just on a call 2 weeks ago with a client that's going through a merger. Or I'm sorry, it's a weird system. They're actually forming a new company. They're closing out the current company. They're getting some investors. It's a weird thing. But there was the IT guy that was supporting that other business that's investing in this new combined effort, and talked a really great game. Said, "Hey, yeah, we need to do X, we need to do Y, blah, blah, blah." So it seemed like he was going to be the dominant MSP in this relationship, and we would just be a co-managed service agreement compared to the full managed services that we had before. But come to find out, when I had a conversation later on with someone from his camp, it turned out that it was more of just that confidence spoke more than what the ability of what he could do. And so, and it seemed that, from the research, he looked like he was a solo tech, and a solo business owner. You would have never thought that was the case. And there's a few of our colleagues that talked to really great confidence and gain. And when you find out that they only have 2-3 employees, it was like, wait, you only have 2-3 employees and you're doing this. It's really interesting to hear just the confidence and understanding where you come from. Now, the question becomes, all right, great, Paco, that's great. Confidence is good. Okay. But I talk great, what's going on. I think the biggest piece of what people can see through the crap and figure out that you're not confident is that you don't believe in your own solution. You're piecing together tools and commingling stuff, and you're saying, yeah, this is the great stuff, right? And that's where people get stuck on, oh, we're highlighting the tools, is because the tools are doing the job, right?
Right.
And so the question becomes, are you confident in the solution that you're offering, but do you understand the solution and utilizing them in its full potential to then have the confidence to someone and go from there? I can tell you right here and then that my tool set that I had before made me extra nervous. Like, I had a bunch of multiple vendors, working with John on kind of how he was running things. It made me really nervous because there were certain things that had to run a certain way. We were doing a lot of checks and things of that nature. And what he helped me realize was there's so much work in the process to understand how these tools work that made it even more impactful, where now I was taking meetings and I was confident in what we're doing. Yeah, absolutely. We have a managed detection response to know something's going on. Yeah, we've built in alerting in your Office 365 tenant in case something weird is going on. Hey, we've done da 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 da, whatever, right? And in that confidence is your experience. And your experience is where you get paid. And that's really where it comes down to, because if you're going to talk to me, where I've only been in business for 10 years compared to what Rick has experienced in 20 years, he's definitely going to try, like, he could demand double the money of what I have because he's seen some stuff that I haven't yet. Right. And vice versa. I think there's a lot of learning that can be done all around. But you get what I'm saying, as far as that experience is what clients are paying for. And honestly, this is a tip that John Dubinsky told me many years, and I think it was actually at the first Unconvention, and it was charge as humanly possible that the market will bear. The moment people are complaining about, and then there was another phrase where it's like, if your clients are not complaining about your pricing, you're not charging enough.
You're not charging enough. Exactly.
So, and I've heard that from a few people. So, Chicago's rate is a little bit different than maybe, down, I don't know, in South Carolina, or down over in LA. I may be charging, a third of what's happening in LA. I don't know. I don't know the job market, but you get what I'm saying. I think the biggest piece of understanding what you're undercharging is really on the confidence of what you can offer and the margin that you can go ahead and do. Someone here in the Facebook group that mentioned something that you talked about, Rick, is, you had a great point. The best thing you can hear from a customer as a solo tech is, I'm not sure I can afford you. So really, it's being able to understand what your worth is. And it's hard to do that when you're hearing a lot of the noise that's outside and going from there. The other piece that you had mentioned too is about pricing, right? And like, you make this mistake up front on charging less and you're trying to beat that price. I think everyone goes through that. I think everyone has to charge their own way. But the biggest piece is that there's not one way to do this. My biggest suggestion is to pick up 2 books that I thought were really great. It's Carl Palachek's Managed Services in a Month, which is interesting because he talks about totally shifting your business model on getting monthly recurring revenue. But what I took from the book was, I can ask for more upfront in a retainer than I can when I'm doing on-demand break fix work. And that's how I actually bridged my break fix clients to managed services, was having that retainer block that kind of recycled itself, and then charging on the flat fee once I got my margins right. So that's a great book. We'll put that in the show notes. The other book that I would suggest is Nigel Moore's Pricing Package Profit. Was that right? Pricing Package Profit?
Packaging,
Nigel,
Pricing, and Profit.
Yeah, you're going to kill me, Nigel, and I apologize.
Pricing, Profit, and Oh my God.
See,
Price of
we're
packaging.
gonna put the link in the show notes, and Nigel can correct us when on the link if he listens to the episode. But that's a great book that talks about you don't have to price how everyone else is pricing. You can
Right.
price to what you're comfortable with to maintain a footing, especially if you're starting out. If you're starting out, you got to try to figure it out. You can't, if you don't have confidence that you can charge $1,500 a month, $3,000 a month, $16,000 a month, whatever it is that you feel like that's what's going on in your market rate, go at your own pace. Set agreements, set boundaries for you to understand what your limitations are. Because what you don't want to do is say, I'm going to include everything, and you're burnt out after the last 6 months. And I'm starting to feel that a little bit, to be honest with you all. Like, I think it's one of those where, I have to expand and find a local tech because the subcontractors are not working out like I would hope for. They're great help. They're great assets. I don't know what I wouldn't do without Andres being able to help me out with a lot of my on-sites as I'm, taking meetings, trying to do sales and stuff like that. But I've come to find out that I do need more presence on foot. And so now that's the next hurdle that I have to go through. But now, do the numbers make sense? Right? Have I made sense and make sure that the margin is there? Can I afford new staff that are coming in there? And these are all big questions you got to ask. So that's the purpose of you trying to figure out the forecasting, figure out your pricing right. And, quote unquote, are you undercharging is really what are your business goals? And once you get your business goals down, then you can understand where you need to go from there.
Right. That goes back to knowing where you want to be or what you expect to be going forward. And yes, I concur with everything you've just said, because it is an age-old issue that and it's one of those things where no matter what forum you're in, you can go to any forum that has MSPs and techs in it. You're going to find that topic, and you're going to find 100 different ways of doing it, 100 different suggestions on how to do it. And, one of the things I have learned is what you just said. You got to do it your way, right? You got to do what's comfortable for you. Now, like I said before, I learned that I was undercharging when I started, right? So I made the adjustment. I'm continuously making adjustments. One of the things we also have to continue to do, and, we talk about this, you have to put in your contracts, put clauses in there that you're going to go up. Even if you're, put clauses in there, you're going to go up 3%, 4%, 5%, whatever it may be. So then it's not an expectation. I've talked to and heard from MSPs who say, hey, I just raised the price, like it's expected. I raised the price. No one has said a word about it. The client was used to paying X. On January 1st, he got a bill that said Y, and he just paid it, or he or she just paid it. And there's been no pushback. And I think it goes back to the confidence level. I think that's very important, because one of the things that you do, you talk yourself out of meeting your worth, is when you continue to question, what's going to happen? Is the client going to balk at this? Is this, what is he going to do? Is he going to leave me? And the bottom line is, if you're charging a fair price and doing a fair job, the price really doesn't matter to a client. If you're doing, and again, if you're doing a job, an exceptional job, or a well-maintained job for them, the price is really, it may start out as the initial sticking point when selling it in, but it quickly becomes, if you're doing things right, it quickly becomes, less and less of an issue. That becomes, that drops down to the bottom of, things that that the client is worried about. So you have to be confident in what you're offering is worth it, is what the client needs. And I, again, one of the things I've learned now that I didn't know then, so I won't sit here and say I'm a guru and I knew this from the beginning. You can't be afraid. You can't be afraid for a customer to say no, and you can't be afraid to lose a customer. One of the things I'm learning, never have a customer that you could possibly lose that represents more than 25% of your business, because that will hurt you, right? So you always want, that's why you keep marketing, you keep growing, you keep moving. So if you lose that one customer, you can replace them quickly, or it won't stagger you too much. But if you're doing your job, charging a fair market rate. And I keep saying that, and that fair market rate is whatever it is. If you're in, town A and state B, and or you're here or wherever, your rate is going to be what your rate is. And again, that fair market rate is, as John would say, whatever the highest possible rate that, that the market will allow. Right. And if you're doing that and on top of your job, and your customer is going to stay with you. So
Yeah.
I'd say that because it was one of my hangups in the beginning about worrying if I overprice, if I raise the price too much or say this number, is this guy going to sign with me? And my thing is now, if he doesn't sign with me, then he's not really interested in the service I am. He's just price shopping, right?
Yeah.
Or he may have found somebody who, like you said, talked a good game and said they can offer him the same thing I'm offering him at half the price, which you and I both know can't happen. So,
Nope.
at some point there's going to be a shortcoming somewhere. So, as we do it, I'm just emphasizing and stressing that everyone, I'm not saying go through what I'm doing now and restructuring everything or looking at everything. And the only thing I'm really doing is just basically checking behind what I'm doing, making sure I'm meeting the needs of each customer. But it is time for all of us. If you look at all your costs, I'm sure you have seen at least 40% of your business, the vendors you do business with, they have raised their prices on you at some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
Or your costs somewhere are up. So you need to adjust that as well, because your margins, you want to keep your margins, if they're in a healthy place, you want to keep them there, or else you're going to find yourself again swimming against the stream.
Yeah. I mean, I think, there's a lot you said there, right? And I think the first one is obviously controlling your revenue source is one big piece to avoid any catastrophic failures. And I've heard that advice. I thought that was great advice at the time, but, I had a client come in 2019, they were a third of my revenue. And man, when I tell you it was a good thing going, it was a good thing going. Like they were just all over the place, right, in the cannabis industry. So they were just tossing everything they could to get their operations running. And it was the office, right? So it wasn't even a retail shop that it was there. It was the office operations. They were hiring all these analysts. I mean, it was a lot of good times there. But but unfortunately, they outgrew us and they ended up leaving. And that was toward the end of the year. So that was a huge blow to what we needed, from a third of our revenue being gone just like that. And so, we adjusted. All of our clients are on the same revenue size, but we also are always keeping in mind, okay, who are our client list, who's our high priority, who's our strategic accounts, and who are we afraid of churn? Like, who haven't we been on the ball with as often? Hey, we hear some rumblings about some acquisitions. Can we afford to lose them? What do we have in the pipeline that's coming in that can make up for that revenue? How do we make sure that we keep in track so that, you don't have to lay people off because you brought people in to support the ever expanding workforce, right? So these are all things that you want to take advantage of and really figure out. And then I think the other piece that you mentioned too was really dialing down on your margins and understanding where you're going to go through from rising prices from vendors. It is a very big issue. I mean, look at Microsoft with their new consumer experience products. They're raising everything 20%. Have you adjusted for that? Are you going to be left to the side because you didn't think about it, and now you got a huge bill by whenever they do that conversion? Other vendors are increasing their security tools accounts, and for good reason. These tools are great tools, and some are charging double than what they had before, just because they need to make up for that allocation. A lot of people did a lot of great stuff during the pandemic, and now they have to kind of make sure that they can make those pricing and margins for themselves, right? And it's a two-way street. We should be willing to support their business because they're helping grow ours and scale ours. These are all things you got to make sure and you got to take into account for. But really, you just have to make sure that as you're kind of calculating and figuring all this out, you don't want to just drop the bomb on your client and just say, here you go, an extra $500 on your bill per user and have a nice day. So, and that's going to be that, proverbial slap that we referred to earlier in
Right.
in the show, is how do you get around that? How do you, what are some strategies, some tangible things that you can do? We can just be too big talking heads here and just talk about all the grades and what do you do? But I can share a couple strategies that what we did when we raised clients' pricing as we moved along. The first biggest one was mandatory pricing. And that's something that it had to happen. Like, there's just no way it's going to go around. We need to raise the prices. We get notified by a vendor, hey, in 60 days and 30 days and 90 days. And usually they're pretty good about telling you, in advance of a price change like that. What I would do, or even when I'm at the point where it's been X amount of time and it's time to raise pricing, and if you don't have it in a contract that says you're going to be doing a 3 to 5% increase every year, what I've done is I will sometimes change up or convert my plans. And I get made fun of a lot about this because I'm always technically changing my plans, quote unquote. But, it's the nature of adjusting. And I try to do this to monitor and keep the pulse on the money coming in every quarter, every monthly, every quarter, and especially every biannually. And so what I do is, if I decide, it's time for me to raise the price. And so the branding and this is a thing I learned from Tom Bull over at Two River, is that branding is everything. Branding, being able to really just say like, hey, here's our plan. So we call our stuff protective, PROTEK, TIVE, to play on the K from our company name. But when we offer these plans, what I do is I will say, here's the new plan. Here's what we're offering you. And then there's a second line item that says legacy discount. And I subtract the amount from that plan, that so they still see the same bill for the same amount. But if they open the bill up, they'll see that there's a legacy discount in there. So I'll let that go for 30, 60, 90 days sometimes. And then right as it gets to the 90-day mark, then I send that email for the next payment saying, hey, just so you're aware, we are with a new plan now. You've been getting a legacy discount. We will be removing that legacy discount here in the next payment. If there's any issues, give us a call. Let us know. They never call. Nor do they call after we raise the price and charge. Maybe one person will come. And then this is what helps identify for you who's seeing you as a price tag and as a cost center, and not as a value center for helping their business, right? And that will help you identify where your hours are going. Are they a needy client that are taking up a lot of your hours and not understanding the process? And in reverse, it also explains to you on what do you need to do and fix your processes so that they aren't needy clients, or they're not constantly contacting you to try and figure things out. So it's a great tool that we use to employ. It's really helped us out on doing that realm. Another tool that we used when we were doing break fix, what we would do is we would go ahead and add particularly for example, we have a client that was paying us break fix, and they were paying us on a retainer basis every month and a half, 2 months, and it would be X amount of, whatever the amount would be. So what I would do to get them on a monthly basis so I can have predictable income is I would total up everything that they paid. I would divide it out by the 12 months. I'll add all the tools in and I say, hey, for everything that you're paying me for on a break fix bail, you're not going to get any differences. You just got to now a predictable thing every month. And that's what helped me bridge into the managed services, so that now that I got them into that division of labor, quote unquote, I actually was able to then get them into the regimen of paying me monthly. And then I converted them into my plan that I had already set up for them. And I said, hey, you're paying this. We're going to include more tools and more value into your package. And they loved it because I conditioned them to now pay me monthly with this division of labor versus them just paying when they need something. So that was another thing that we ended up doing as well, just kind of getting the pricing. And then, of course, now we've kind of switched from the per device to per user. It's been easier. It's flat pricing. And we're actually thinking about adjusting our lower tier as well, just because of the amount of new stuff that we need to begin to monitor. And it used to be our remote only plan, but now everybody's remote. So it's starting to become a much more of a bigger nuisance to try and make sure everyone's safe. And our remote plans are starting to cause us more work than it was when for the project and on-site work that we had for our other plan. So but those are some ideas for those that are listening to try and figure out, how do I get into this monthly recurring income? How do I get to more predictable income? And that's kind of what we've done for pricing and try to figure it out from there as well.
And I wanted to throw one other thing out as an idea. If you're in a position where you have concluded that you've been undercharging, or you have decided that the pricing that you're about to make, the changes you're going to make to clients is going to be a drastic number or a bigger number. Let's say, more than 25% or something, and you think you may get some pushback. I would suggest first you try to sell it in as whatever it is. So if you're going from, and I'm going to use it easy numbers, if you're going from $100 a month to $200 a month, and you think that 100% increase is going to be too drastic for your client to absorb, one of the suggestions I've seen that I've not tried this because I haven't been faced with it where, I've got the pushback, but maybe start to move to that level in steps for your client. Kind of similar to what Paco was saying about the legacy plan, but instead say, hey, you're at $100. To get all of the services and for us to fully protect you and offer you, what you really need, you need to be at this level at $200. I understand that's a drastic move for you. So let's do that in stages. So maybe in 3 months, we'll go up 25% or 33%. We'll go with that for 3 months. Then we'll make it to the next 3 months. We'll be at the $175 level. Then we'll be at $200 to get you where you are. And then maybe that'll sometimes help the client absorb the cost. I use I use those numbers just because they're simple to count. But it's one of those things where then you are working towards keeping your margins where they need to be, and you're not losing a price sensitive client, if that is worth it for him, if it's worth it for you, excuse me. And then you can get to where you need to be. That can be over 3 months, it can be over 6 months, it can be over a year, depending on the number, depending on your comfortability and the client's comfortability. But it is another way, another idea to help maybe get you where you need to be if your pricing is you determine is below where it should be. And again, like Paco said earlier, that's all going to be based on you. I struggle with that all the time. The weird thing about it is I'm very confident in what I offer. I'm not, I have no qualms about the platform and the plans we offer. We have, now I've made sure there is a base. If you want to do business with us, you have to do these things. You have to have these things, because for us as MSPs, the liability, is more than, what we're making if we don't do this right. So you have to have the basics down, because no matter your best client, your worst client, whoever it is, how much they love you, how much you've done for them, the lawyer doesn't care. If something goes wrong, the lawyer is not your friend. He doesn't care that you and the client, what you've done for the client, or how you saved the client money, or you didn't overcharge him. He knows now his job is to get somebody to pay for the problems that come up. So that can be you. So, you have to protect yourself in that manner, which is why, again, the confidence in what you're offering, charge what you're supposed to charge for it, and don't necessarily, worry about the backlash or losing a client. Because I'll tell you this, if you lose a client because of price and you've been doing the right thing, that client wasn't worth it for you in the end anyway.
Right. So there's a couple things, right, that you had said there. I think the first part is never shop with your own wallet, right? I think the biggest piece is that where confidence becomes an issue is you don't think someone's going to pay you X amount of dollars because you wouldn't pay someone X amount of dollars. Right? So you can't do that to yourself. You can't shop with your own wallet to someone else, right? You can't use them to have them try and say, you know what, hey, this is the price, but I think for where you guys are at, you should do this. You might have talked yourself out of what you could have gotten from
Right.
that client, so never shop with your own wallet when you're pitching and selling your services. The other piece to that you had said is something that my sales mentor at the time, Victor Antonio, has mentioned is you never discount your services. Never provide a discount. Never do. So it plays into what you said is when you give them the price and they feel like it was a slap in the face and they say, well, we can't do this. What can you do for us? The question to them should be, okay, no problem. When can you do it? Should we scale it? Should we give you more time to, gather what you need? Is that 3 months from now? Is that 6 months from now? Is that next year? And give them the intention of, okay, we will extend this, but this pricing will change at this time. Right. So now they're already conditioned that they know that price is going to change. So either a couple of things are going to happen. Either A, they're going to leave. Right. And again, it's depending on your comfortability with the client, how you work with them. Maybe this is a tool for you to, cleave the herd and make sure that you have less more painful clients that are taking up your time because they don't understand the value, to open it up for new clients to kind of come in. And then obviously you have the question that comes in. Okay, great, Paco, that's good. I did this and I cleaved off the herd. Where do I find the new clients? My reply to you is that's on you. You got to figure out where you got to find them. What is your pipeline?
Discussion.
What is that? That's a different conversation, my friend. That is marketing inbound, and that is beyond my pay grade. So we make sure we get those specialists to come in there. But, you have to make sure that you understand the ramifications of you doing this, right? Like, so if you can't afford to do something like this, then what are you doing to replace that bad dollar for a good dollar so you can get rid of the bad dollar? So,
and the truth is, I'm sorry to cut you off. The truth is,
no, you're good.
If your service is worth X, but you're only charging J, you're losing money. So you're better off without that client than you are getting, because you're losing money. So if you cut them all the way out, yes, you don't get that little bit of revenue, but your expenses will go down too as well from servicing that client. Because, a lot of things I think we don't take into account. We can't just look at tools when we look at the cost of what it costs to service a client. If you have techs, that is a cost to servicing your client. I don't care if that client puts in 1 ticket or 100 tickets. Your tech still has to get paid. If you have staff, they have to get
known
paid.
as the burden rate. And
exactly.
I forgot what book it was I read. I forgot what it is. Oh, PSA Impact by Chris Tim talks about the burden rate in a really good way, and we'll put that book in the show notes as well.
Okay. Yeah, but it's just, those are just, things we have to take into account. And again, this is why I say to anyone who's starting or in the beginning stages, or, it doesn't matter if you're a 1-man shop or 10-man shop, wherever you are, one of the things to do is price now where you want to be. That way you don't find yourself behind the 8 ball when you get where you want to be and you price like you were just starting out. Hopefully that makes sense. I know I threw a lot of back and forths in there, but you have to, so whatever your goal is whatever your dream is, when you close your eyes, this is when I want to wake up 5 years from now, 2 years from now, a week from now, and what my MSP is going to be. That's where you need to price your services now. And it'll be amazing that you will think, hey, I can only charge, and I'll use your example, Paco, of seats.
Yep.
Some people think, hey, I can't charge more than $100 a seat. But there are people out there getting $300 a seat. And 9 times out of 10, they don't offer anything. We all use the same tools, right? Different companies call them something different, but they're all the same tools. We all do the same thing.
Right.
Our goals are all the same, right? To help our clients, we manage, protect, and secure their networks. We all do it. We just use different tools. We have fancy names for our MSP platforms or programs, but it's all the same thing. So it goes back to what Paco said, that confidence. I could sell something for $100 a seat, and Paco can go sell the same client for $150 a seat, and only because he has the confidence to sell it that way, and I didn't exhibit that.
Yep. Yeah, it's all about explaining the value and really trying to get to the point where sometimes the things can sell themselves, and really understanding you get lucky on those. The other ones, you got to kind of put a little bit of elbow grease and understand that this is the value and what you need to do. So but yeah, I think that's, we could wrap up on that piece there, unless there's any additional pricing strategies or topic you want to talk about, Rick.
No, I just it was just one of those things where I was in the process now of raising prices, so it was a good the timing for us to have this conversation was great.
Yeah, and that's really what we're trying to do here. Is, on Tuesdays, if you are running through a similar problem and you need some two talking heads for some therapy to try and figure out what you're doing, you're more than welcome to come on the show. If you have questions versus trying to just come in and share your opinion and experience, we're okay with that too. Feel free to head over to mspunplug.com/contact us, or you can always email us at info@mspunplug.com. So, but yeah, before we kind of round out the show here, Rick, any lasting words to our endeavored listeners listening to us this fine Tuesday night?
Yes, it's Rick speech time. Paco starts it off. I bookend it on the back end. But again, TechCon Unplugged is approaching. So anyone who can hear us now, I'm hoping I'm encouraging you to go out there, get your tickets. Again, we'll probably be, everyone on the podcast will probably be past the April 4th date by then. But, we are working very hard to make this the best, the best show we've had. Each year we're going to keep trying to improve. We've got some people working with us, some committees working now of us, trying to help us, making sure that we give each other, a great experience coming on. I'm not going to say we give you all, because we're learning just as much, even though we're sitting on one side of it. We're going to be out there learning just as much, hoping to contribute and gain knowledge from our vendors, from our presentations, from each other and our talks. Even when we're sitting around at the bar, there's always some knowledge that we can all grab, some ideas that we can grab and take back with us. So again, my spiel is this: I encourage you, if you have any suggestions, questions, anything you want to see, hear, do, please reach out to us, or Rick at mspunplugged.com, or info at mspunplugged.com. Again, we're taking all questions and suggestions and working with them to try to make sure that this is a great experience for all of us.
Yep. Yeah, just like what Rick said, the only difference between us and you is we figured out how to use the streaming software. So that's the only reason. But no, and all just, we appreciate everyone tuning in. If you want to listen to more of this content, tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. Watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged or facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button so you'll be notified when a new episode is available. You can also take us on the go with your favorite podcatcher app. We're on Amazon Music, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate you all tuning in. We finally caught up with all the episodes. They are all in the podcatcher now. We will now be back on our regularly scheduled program. And this is for real this time. I know I've mentioned that before. But yeah, we've been great. And then, yeah, for those that have purchased tickets in the past couple of weeks, we really appreciate you welcoming our admin, Latrice, as she's contacting everyone to kind of just make sure you take advantage of that early bird deal. So again, we really appreciate you listening. And we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.